Well, once again we have been forced to return to the Virtual Boy. But this time it's for a series that I actually love, Wario Land. That's right, the second Wario Land game was not Wario Land 2, but instead Wario Land on the Virtual Boy, often referred to as VV Wario Land. This game features Wario once again hunting for treasure, this time deep in the Awazon River Basin. Is that how you're supposed to pronounce that? It's like the Amazon, except the M was flipped upside down to a W, like Wario. Truly, this is the peak of video game writing. While flying around in his plane the Bulldog, Wario noticed a group of suspicious figures going to the back of Aldegara Falls. These figures are the Mask Guys, a tribe of mysterious figures with masks that resemble Tengus. Tengu are often depicted as mischievous demons, though that can change dramatically based on where exactly the stories you hear come from. However, it's likely this evil take is what we're supposed to interpret from these masks, as the Mask Guys are thieves who offer up treasure to their demonic idol. I'm not sure if he's venerated as a god or simply a ruler, as we don't get to see any direct interactions between the figure and the Mask Guys, but we'll get more into that later. The Mask Guys obviously share a lot of similarities with other groups in the Mario universe. For many people, their first instinct may be to compare them to Shy Guys, especially the Spear Guys found in Yoshi's Island. But I think a cleaner comparison would be with the Sphere masks featured in Wario Land 4, which also features a vaguely South American Amazonian setting. They also have spears and masks as their most defining characteristics, though these spear masks do look very different still. So they probably aren't meant to be the same group. Wario followed the Mask Guys into their lair behind the waterfall, where they threw their treasure into a door marked with a demonic head. Wario attacked them and chased after the treasure, but fell through a trap door and into a dark cave. Despite this momentary setback though, Wario was still determined, and set off to find the treasure. The Wario shown here is still very cruel and violent, flat out stating that he intends to kill all the thieves who inhabit the caves and are preventing him from returning to the surface. Funnily enough, Wario tries to paint himself in a slightly more heroic light in the manual, talking about how the thieves jumped him and he took them down with ease, when in reality the game shows him attacking them from behind. But it figures that Wario would really want to sell himself to anybody who's reading the manual. The game follows Wario as he travels through 14 levels, at the end of each one taking an elevator closer and closer to the surface. Along the way he fights 4 bosses. The first is the Dinosaur Fish, a small reptilian figure that lives in a huge cave that looks ominously like its own face. It attacks Wario with a spiked ball that's attached to its head. The Sandfish, fought at the end of Stage 8, is kind of somewhere between a fish and a worm. It lives in quicksand and will bombard Wario in an attempt to defeat him. In the Sandfish's arena, there are a number of statues of the fish itself behind it, showing that it too is revered in some way. Probably for its prowess in battle, given the trident the statues hold, which funnily enough the Sandfish does not have in this fight. It's also weird that both of the first 2 bosses are fish. Maybe because the whole thing is supposed to take place beneath a river basin? The third boss fight is against Tank and Operator. The Operator is a small blob-like creature that operates Tank, which is, well, a tank. This is clearly a step above what we've seen from the other bosses technology-wise, but is very fitting with the factory-like area that precedes it. Much like the others, the tank has an artistic representation of itself in the boss room, this time in the form of a mural. The final boss of the game is the Demon Head, a floating, ghostly visage that looks exactly how the name describes. It seems to be somehow venerated by the Mask Guys, as the door to the treasure chamber shown at the start of the game features this face, as do all the treasure rooms hidden throughout the game. This is where the earlier assumption of him being treated as a god or ruler comes from. Looking at it and hearing the name, I have to draw similarities between the Demon Head and Devil's Head from the previous Wario Land game. While they clearly aren't the same being, they do look similar in a lot of ways, so maybe they're related somehow in some kind of weird Mario demonology. With the Demon Head defeated, Wario manages to leave with a treasure. If Wario managed to collect all the optional treasures throughout the game, he can achieve better endings. I tend to assume, without other context stating otherwise, that the hardest ending to achieve is the canon one, in this case ending with Wario flying a magic carpet back home, with a bag of coins, a magical bottle, and for some reason a sexy bunny girl on one arm. I have no idea where she came from, but she is actually referenced in later games, so that seems to support this ending being canon. As shown in other endings, the magical bottle seems to hold the soul of the demon head, now trapped after his defeat at Wario's hands. While not shown in the best ending, the 3 worst endings imply that the bulldog became unflyable, being taken over by a family of beavers. Likely, given its lack of appearance here, the same thing probably happens in the final ending. This places the game after every other appearance of the bulldog, the last of which, at this point, is Wario's Woods, putting this game towards the end of the timeline. I'm not sure where to put this in relation to the Donkey Kong Country games, since those 2 series are very abstracted, but for now I'm going to put it before, since that's the earliest this game can possibly take place. Also, it's worth noting that Wario still takes damage in this game, so he doesn't yet have the immortality he would gain by the time of Wario Land 2. Now, even with the timeline aside, there's still something else that I want to discuss about this game. This little dude right here. This is a treasure found in stage 11. It appears to be a Dogu statue, which is a type of effigy statue that was made in Japan around the late Jomon period. Interestingly, this is not the only time we've seen a Dogu statue in the Mario universe. As was pointed out by Ghostly Artistry and General Donetsky on the Marioverse Discord server, a robotic Dogu statue is also the final secret opponent in Wrecking Crew 98, where he's stated to have come from a faraway land and has spent a great amount of time in slumber before being awakened in order to face Mario. While it likely isn't the same Dogu, since Wario left the one from this game behind when escaping with all this money, it's possible that the faraway land Dogu mentioned in Wrecking Crew 98 was the Awazon. That's just a theory, and it's not even mine, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Shout out to Marioverse for providing us little connections like this that completely went over my head. And that's it for this episode. VB Wario Land seems to be a relatively unobtrusive game of the timeline with an interesting set of villains that really aren't explained, and leave a lot of room for speculation. So what do you think about the masked guys of the Awazon River Basin? Any hot theory takes to mention about this game? Feel free to bring them up in the comments or on my Discord server linked in the description. And with that, I'll see you next time.